I've only just learned about Pete Hegseth's tattoos, like in the last day or
Oh,
so. My instinct was just to like message you two and immediately and like, oh my God, have you seen this? And then I
yeah,
just thought, you know what? Actually, this is a democratic discussion. This is a discussion for the people. There are so many important like features of this to get through. Like one, they just look so bad. Two, it's like a black and white flag of Georgia, and I don't even know if he gets that. Maybe he does, I guess. Three, like how is this like of course he has those tattoos, and of course they firstly are like Nazi as fuck, and second like look like shit. But like, how is he this much of a like parody of the exact guy who you'd expect to be like Trump's like war chief guy? Like I
yeah.
learned about it
It's
through the like Onion cartoon, and I saw like this tattered up guy looking like shit, obviously a massive Nazi, looks like he's a creep to women, and I was like, I don't know who that's supposed to be, but is it like is this a Graham Platinum bit or what's going on? And then
yeah,
Bruh.
yeah. It's pretty hilarious. It's yeah, like these are all of the tattoos that Nazis get when they don't want to just get a swastika, or when it might be not a great idea for them to have like that. It's a
They're
thing,
all
right? Like
cowards. They're all cowards.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And like, I mean, this is a thing as well. Like, I've talked about this on Twitter a couple times. In my experience, like, I've been working in tattoo shops for like literally over 20 years now, since I was like 17 years old. And the overwhelming majority of the time, when someone wants to come and cover up a racist tattoo or a swastika, it's not because they no longer agree with the ideology behind it or anything. It's because they're like, oh, this stops me getting a job or whatever. So a lot of these people now, they'll do things like, yeah, like all this fucking like the Deus Vault shit and all that kind of stuff, which to anyone that is online, you recognize this stuff as like, oh, this is the shit from all the Crusader memes. This is the fucking dumb racist shit. And even like a little bit outside that, the average person might see some of this imagery and be like, oh, these are like, those weird, like fucking conservative tattoos, or these are like cop tattoos or whatever. But but it's, it's like, it's dog whistles and shit, like they just, it's, and I mean, I also think that like, like underneath this stuff, a lot of it is very like specifically like anti-Islamic flavored kind of imagery, like yeah, like all the Crusader shit or whatever like that.
The Crusader
Um,
thing is completely, yeah, just so
yeah, yeah,
insane
yeah,
to
yeah,
me. I
exactly.
saw someone post something about like when a time in like medieval times for us when Iran was doing like very advanced surgery, and meanwhile like what Europe was doing was just occasionally going on like a just destruction and murder and rape and torture campaign known as the
Yeah.
Crusades over and over, and that's all we were doing at the time.
Yeah, yeah. But this is like, and this is the kind of stuff, like you're seeing like ICE agents and everyone pick these up as well. But cops have been getting this, American cops particularly have been getting this kind of shit for fucking years, like everything from like the fucking, like actually I've seen a resurgence of it. Someone did a thread of ICE agents with the Molon Labe tattoo. Um, which is like, like it's a common thing. It's like the old thing. It's like what
I hate that thing
Leonidas
so
apparently
much.
said to Xerxes, where he was just like, like they were like, Xerxes was like, lay down your arms or whatever. And Molan Labe was like him being like, come and take them or whatever. And obviously, like Leonidas is the 300 guy, and 300 is a story about a story, not actually how that shit went down. Which I think is like very like that says a lot about, I mean that says a lot in general. But so the mythology is that they were these great warriors, whatever. In reality, they kind of like, Xerxes fucking got him, like whatever. So I feel like it's amazing at this point in time where America is going back to at war with
Yeah,
Persia,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and it's like, it's actually like, if anything, I think I've seen Iranian officials they're the ones saying Molon Labe at the moment.
Yeah.
They're the ones saying like, like, all right, ground invasion, come on, boots on the ground, get them here. Like, so it's kind of funny. Like a lot of this imagery and like all this shit is just completely lost on them. They just, they're just like, yep, fucking 300, let's fucking go. Like, yeah, this is not like this is not what's happening. You guys are not. You don't have a bottleneck. There's, like there's fucking little goat paths all around you. You're
I mean,
fucked.
if there's one side who very clearly has a bottleneck in this
Yeah,
situation,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
and
Someone else
also
is a
like
bottleneck, and you guys are
it's all
like begging people to like go through it with you. Like,
it's also like a perfect inversion, really. Like there's the
yeah.
because 300 gets shown to American troops. Like
Oh,
I
that's of course it
What?
does. Yeah.
yeah. It's one of the films that's like very like it was huge with the yeah. Anyway, sorry, I've heard
They
this from
just
like
fucking hang out
a
and
bunch of
goon to it.
American people I've known who's been in the military. But like the even in that film, like their consolation that they're all getting massacred is like they're
Yeah.
showing that a god can bleed, so the empire will fall. And I'm like, again, if that's anyone in this situation,
Yeah, yeah.
it's Iran who's showing that America can bleed and can be like, just like strong-armed and isn't undefeatable. Like,
Yeah, it's wild. It's like the craziest thing is that it's like um in the movie, literally in the movie it shows that this is one guy telling some other guys a story, and it's like he's an unreliable narrator, Like it's like, yeah, I don't know. It's very I don't know. It's like I don't know if it was intentionally written by Zack Snyder to be this kind of commentary or whatever. It's kind of like like Fight
I
Club
hate
kind of
that
taking on
theory
its own
so
life.
much. I just
Yeah.
like
Yeah, yeah.
there's no reading of that movie that's like whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Like it's like yeah, the thing with Fight Club where it's like it's taken on its own life and people have like added in all this other shit to it. Or even, so, like with the Matrix, like the whole red pill, blue pill thing. And it's like very much like this kind of there's like this kind of um chud cinema studies like this. They enter this separate universe where they have their own physics and
A good bonus episode series is us watching like famous chud cinema and
yeah.
discussing.
Yeah, let's
Mm.
do that. We should do that this week.
Yeah. So it's Red Planet.
Yeah.
We are going to start the show like we generally do. I'm going to ask Mule, what's the most base thing you did this week?
Yeah, I have been going out into my local community and I have decided to kind of start, and I'm not sure how this is going to go, but walking around the gay village on a Friday or a Saturday night. I learned that basically I went out on Friday and I didn't go out for any specific reasons, get drunk or anything. I thought I will go and see if there are any drag queens that I remember from when I used to work in the village hanging out. And I'm going to catch up with them and see how they're doing and see how everything is going. Not because I had an inkling that something like this was going on, but just because I just thought it was nice to go and see some of my immediate community. And one of the things that we spoke about was the fact that there are a bunch of far right auditors, some of these freaks who basically go around and harass people with GoPro cameras, and all this kind of stuff. They go around and do it in the village, and they harass drag queens and drag kings and queer people in the village. One of the more funnier stories, and it was funnier because my friend was obviously saying, well, it's kind of funny that they were saying this. They said that one person had come up to them and started saying, "Where's the straight village?" Like, you're in the gay village. Where's the straight village?
Please,
There's only one
please,
gay
let's build a
village.
straight village. Please, let's make them all go there.
Put a ball there. Yeah, it's in my
A white
backyard, mate.
picket
Do you want to
fence,
look?
like 50 meters tall.
Yeah, yeah, and it's just like a chair with a bunch of straps on, and like you have to watch Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, and it makes you like not a queer phobe anymore. But yeah, no. So yeah, I basically I just hung around for a couple of hours, and I've started to think that maybe I should just do that, and I have kind of thought about maybe get in touch with this organization called the Village Angels, who like go around and help people when they're too drunk and vulnerable and stuff, you know, and help them out if you know if there's any like queer phobes who are coming into the community to try and like you know attack people or whatever, and they just kind of act as a deterrent. I guess they just wear these like pink bibs and stuff. And they go around, so I've been thinking about having a little bit of a chat with them and seeing what they're doing. But I think that the most base thing was me just like going out to my immediate community and just like chatting to some people that I hadn't seen in a while, and I guess just like standing outside. I think the thing that I learned is that drag queens who are outside doing like promo work are just like doing the most insane stuff ever because they're being really visible, they're really visibly queer, and they're out in the fucking cold all the time. My friend Xenia, they had like a fucking hot water bottle in their jacket, and I was like, that's how you do it. I see that that's how you do it. So yeah, it was really nice. So I am thinking about maybe getting in touch with them, or just I don't know, just going and having a little walk around on my own and you know chatting with people and hanging out with people that I know.
I know that the Village Angels and the Guardian Angels are not conceivably the
Yeah,
same
yeah,
thing, but the idea
it's
of you
not
having a
Curtis
Sliwa
Sleewer.
arc would be really fun.
Just going around
Instead
with
of
a
the
pink
pink bit, make it a
beret.
pink beret. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, that would be great. I got put into the back of this cab and I was shot. You won't believe it. That's gonna be me in a couple of years' time. Sleeper remotes in the chat. Yeah. So, that's me. And Tim, Soph, you know what? Tim, what did you do this week?
So the most basic thing I did this week was probably attend another little protest rally situation yesterday to protest. We've had this thing implemented here recently in New Zealand, the move on orders. So it's the government has brought in these new police powers where they can in the inner city they can uh, go up to someone and tell them to move on, and if they don't move on within a certain time frame, they or like if they are seen in the same inner city area, um, soon after they can be either fined $2,000 or they can be arrested immediately. um, this is, and it's like very loosely defined, you know, it's like the classic kind of like loitering thing, like a catch-all kind of thing. And it basically is just war on homeless people that don't have anywhere else to go, or people who do literally live there, you know, in the inner city and don't have anywhere to move on to. It's one of those things where it's been basically like universally condemned by almost everyone aside from like the most extreme hyper online right-wing freaks that are like clean up our cities, whatever, you know, or even just
yeah.
like
The same
there's
guys who are
been
being like, please raise it to $200 oil. I love paying more for oil.
yeah. And it's like, yeah, it is a huge distraction, you know. And we've had like our Prime Minister Christopher Luxon on the news literally being interviewed saying, you know, like the point of this is because, you know, we might have like tourists coming in and they've saved up for their big New Zealand holiday, and they come down to New Zealand, and then there's like homeless people on the streets and it just ruins their holiday, you know, shit like this. And it's kind of just like, okay, well, like fuck their holiday firstly, but it's like, so if you think these people on the streets are a problem, like why
How's
don't we
them?
actually, yeah, exactly, you know, it's
What is
like
this?
you're looking at a problem and you're just like, how do we, you know, like, yeah, get rid of this. But also it also ties into our government is built, well, is in the process of building like our first ever American style super prison sort of thing. And you know, they're desperate, like, because all of these things, all of these arrests, all of this kind of stuff adds like bolsters statistics that help justify projects like this, you know. um it's just like a really horrible thing. And so I work right in the middle of town, and since it's started, we've just been seeing people getting arrested, like, you know, all the time. Like, it's fucking wild, like, you know. And there's like a lot of people in the local community groups like I would say most people are sympathetic to the homeless, but then there's, some local business owners that are just, small business Hitlerites basically. So it's become a real friction point there as well. But yeah, and there's someone that I know quite well who is like living on the street that has it's basically affected, like it's made her life so much more dangerous because of all of the things that she's having to do now to avoid the police in this area or whatever. So it's one of those things that is just like there is no positive to this. And we're talking about in areas where like there's a lot of inner city areas, particularly around where I work, where they have recently um, kind of like upgraded the street and added in all these like new benches and new places to sit and public gardens and all this kind of stuff, these third places. But it's not, like, yeah, I was been doing a lot of reading about it, and there's been people making some really good videos and things like that talking about the idea of public space only being really for people that already have private space. The public space
A thousand
is
percent.
only, yeah, it's complementary to people that have a private space. But if you don't have a private space, a home to live in, like, then of course you're going to be sleeping in the streets, you're going to be using the bathroom in the streets, all these kind of things like that. And it's like we've had around town, around K Road, had homeless people arrested in the public bathrooms and things like that. And it's just like these crazy things where it's like, well, what do you expect to happen, like, yeah. But so yeah, so everywhere, all the big major centers in New Zealand yesterday had some kind of, it's like a day of action, had some kind of protest rally or congregation or whatever against these move on orders. I think it is kind of frustrating because it is all the stuff is happening at the same time. There's so many other things are happening that it's been a little bit hard to, even though most people disagree with them and stuff, I think people are very like overwhelmed at the moment that, there's all this other
Yeah,
stuff going
absolutely.
on and stuff. But I mean, it's just one of those things where it's like you can like we can see how a lot of the stuff going on in our country at the moment, a lot of things people have problems with are like a direct result of actions of the current ruling coalition, as opposed to things that are like hangovers from previous governments or anything like that. So the only kind of solace is that people that like that the electoralists are probably going to like turn on them, and the election is probably going to swing to the left, which is it's always good. But
How soon is the
um
election?
it's in November now. So yeah, they get to choose within like a range of when it's going to be, and they've put it sort of right at the far end. I think they're kind of hoping that there will be some kind of upswing, like we'll solve the fuel issues or something like that, but for then, instead of going out soon and in the middle of all the chaos. But yeah, we're hoping for a more, I guess, progressive result, even though obviously we know that that's not where the real juice comes from. But yeah, like a left a left coalition, I think would never have let any of the move on orders and stuff pass. So yeah, hoping for that. But yes, that's what I was up to yesterday. What about Soph? What about you? What have you been up to?
A few things, I guess. Last week, I think it was, I was saying that organizing is just a ton of meetings, and I've just been having tons of meetings. So guess what? Tons more meetings, which is good. Like it's a nice, it's cool to coordinate between different groups within a bigger org. Like that's a really cool experience to have. And I'm also the reason I'll be off the show next week is that I'm actually facilitating the next meeting of this org that I'm in, and like it's my first time facilitating a big meeting. I'm very excited about it. Also, the hub trainings have started. So I've been talking a bunch about the harm reduction hub, and it's for people who have no idea what I'm talking about. It's like a needle exchange and a harm reduction hub, basically like all kind of people who are in precarious situations or people who are like over policed classes of people can come to be in our space. Like someone used the phrase community living room, and I think that's really appropriate. Like literally, like the sofa in the hub is as much a resource as like any of the like syringe barrels or whatever. Um, and the cool thing to me as a organizing brained autist, the really cool thing about the group is that they have a curriculum that they train all the volunteers in and like get everyone up to the same like on the same page about stuff. And I think like in terms of my understanding of organizing theory and like who is useful in a movement, like producing a set of activists who've all had literally like an education in whatever, like the concept of a woke school is actually, I think, really big. And it's just started again. We've got a massively full new cohort of people, actually so big we had to move across to Pelican House, much to everyone's chagrin, because none of us want to be Pelican House people, but it's like where you can get a big room quickly. Yeah, we had the training, and Joe, a friend of the pod, is one of the new trainees. And as soon as I got to the meeting, I texted her, "Hey, you know how the Prince of Persia has time travel powers, and you know Reza Pahlavi is the Prince of Persia." Well, so if you think about it, and she like looked at
That's
her
good.
phone halfway through the training, she lost her shit really badly, and I'm just like, yeah,
That's
get
good. I
wrecked.
love
Get
that.
wrecked, my dear friend of many years. Okay, as well as that, today I've had a call with some people in a different country who are organizing a public trans assembly, and I'm very excited about it. My trans organizing video is paying off. I'm hearing more and more from people who are organizing trans assemblies and following my model, and I'm helping, I'm chatting it through with some people. These people, I give them some notes on their documents and how they're running stuff, and hopefully they're going to have a public trans assembly soon. And it looks like it's going to be a pretty good one based on what they've been discussing. I'm quite excited about it. So yeah, I've been super busy, and next week I'm going to be very busy as well. And that's why I'll be off the pod next week. There you go.
Cool. Well, we want to know what base things you've been doing. You can message us on Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok, or send an email to based@redplanetshow.com. Include your name and pronouns if you're cool with that, and we may shout it out in a later episode. But we are going to get started with the news. Soph, why don't you start by taking us over to India and talking about what's been going on there?
Sure thing. So this is horrible news, and I thought we'd kind of missed this one, and I was a little bit late reporting it because it's a bill. It's a bill that's gone through the Indian Parliament, and like there was reporting on it the last couple of weeks. Turns out this week is when it's actually passed the second house of the Indian Parliament, and now it's like only presidential assent that's gonna like that stands between it and being law immediately. So the Indian government has passed this bill. It's an amendment bill, and it makes these reactionary changes with the potential to harm most of the trans population of India, which obviously India is a very big place with a lot of people in it, and so the trans population is a very big population too. Activists say the number is much higher, but the Indian census recorded 500,000 trans people there. Uh, like that's so many already, right? And then yeah. Um, so it passed I'm gonna get the name of it right, the Transgender Persons (brackets Protection of Rights) and close brackets Amendment Bill 2026 through the second house this week. The bill, which was roundly condemned by the parliamentary opposition, activist groups, and human rights organizations, makes enormous changes to how trans people are legally recognized in India. The leader of the opposition said of this, the BJP government's transgender persons amendment bill is a brazen attack on the constitutional rights and identity of transgender people. This regressive bill strips transgender people of their ability to self-identify, wipes out diverse cultural identities of communities across India, forces trans people to undergo dehumanizing examinations by a medical board, introduces criminal penalties and surveillance without safeguards. The BJP government hasn't consulted the trans community and brought a bill which stigmatizes rather than protects them. The Constitution protects every Indian's right to life, liberty, identity, and dignity. This BJP government is violating our Constitution and destroying India's rich history of honoring transgender communities in pursuit of its narrow ideas. The Congress Party, which is the opposition party, unequivocally opposes this bill. It's kind of interesting and a bit surreal to read like some of the tech like protections in law that trans people have had in India and have had added recently, um, like from as a British trans woman, like some of the changes they're making here are far more horrific than stuff that's going on in my context. And some of them are like what's taken as normal in my context already. And they're saying like for example, the like examination by a board thing is just like that's the norm here. Like to get the gender recognition certificate, that's considered normal that like a panel of cis people will assess whether you're really trans. Um, yeah, so it's just horrible. The previous legislation, the Transgender Persons Protection of Rights Bill 2019, was a relatively radical framework that allowed self-ID for gender. The country also banned conversion therapy against queer people in 2022, although they didn't really specify what they were calling conversion therapy, and so in practice it still was happening. Um, and also had no legislation to protect the employment rights of trans people or recognize anti-trans hate crimes. However, under this legislation, so it's like, sorry to back up, like it's like they've been winning legal technical wins for a while, uh, and things have been improving, but like not kind of proportionate to those changes. And now this has come in that's just like completely like fucked it all. Under this amendment, only a very narrowly defined group of trans feminine people, the traditionally recognized hijra, or like a third sex group, basically, can be legally seen as trans and given a transgender identity certificate, excluding a large number of trans feminine people and completely precluding the possibility of recognition for trans men or non-binary people. Um, yeah, this is like India has had some success in pushing trans rights in specifically because of the existence historically of Hijra, and like they're basically it's been an argument that's been like we're proud of being like of being a culture that has trans people in it and has a long record of having trans people in it, so we're going to protect trans people. And now the fascists in government have like completely flipped this around and said, well, yes, but only that group are like the specific like sacred real trans people and everyone else is not. And we're going to like let Hijra be Hijra, which is already like obviously a hyper stigmatized class, and like um murders against Hijra are enormous. And like obviously like also a bunch of trans women don't necessarily want to be Hijra. Like they want to be seen as women, which like often Hijra are not. Um so it's all a bit of a fucking nightmare. Here's the human rights campaign. The Social Justice and Empowerment Minister told Parliament that the bill aims to protect only those who face severe discrimination due to biological reasons. However, this is quite important, the bill puts transgender persons at further risk by introducing additional offences and up to life in prison for, quote, coercing or alluring people to be transgender. These are reminiscent of the colonial era laws that criminalize transgender persons for appearing dressed as women, uh, and could be used to criminalize support systems of transgender persons, said the People's Union for Civil Liberties. This is like we should talk a little bit about like what that does specifically mean because it's a very scary thing. Like it's a really scary thing, but also the statement is just gives an overall scary impression that might like be too vague on its own. Like this would mean like if someone specifically gets accused of like transing someone, grooming someone into being trans, or which is, again is like we know this is a common thing that transphobes say, they could face up to life in prison. Um, the bill altogether means that who is considered trans will be very tightly policed, and living as a trans person will be a huge risk because of this kind of accusation, even if they are a legally protected trans person. Like, then obviously it would, they could be criminalized as like, well, we thought you were like one of the good ones, but now actually we see that you're not. And it means trans people will be legally strongly discouraged from trying to help any other trans people to figure out their gender identity or access resources to get through their transition. Um, it's all a bit of a fucking nightmare. Generally, due to the lack of sufficient protections, trans people in India have not been having a good time already. But as I said earlier, like progress was being made in the courts in this, in a technical sense, and things were improving. And this, yeah, over the last decade or so, and this bill is just marking a near total reversal that's going to be absolutely have an absolutely hideous effect on the lives of tons of trans Indians. I having had the Supreme Court ruling and the EHRC shit in the last couple of years, I I just like I can't imagine how much more intense this is because I'm really sure that it is, but like there's a horrible paralyzing dread when like new legislation is just casually rolled out that just completely changes how your life works. Um, Mule, you got some good news from the UK.
Yes, this is very exciting. So on Saturday, the 28th of March in London, what was estimated to be 500,000 demonstrators gathered to protest the rise of the far right and racism in the UK, with Zach Polanski, Rachel Millward, Jeremy Corbyn, Zara Sultana, Diane Abbott leading the march, and Lenny Henry and Paloma Faith giving speeches. For those who are not British, Lenny Henry and Paloma Faith are just some celebrities, but they're actually quite based. And Lenny Henry actually was talking about leading the discussion about reparations for, people of African descent in Britain because of the slave trade and stuff like that. And Drew
It's been like
Ayer,
a huge discussion all throughout, the Imperial Court lately. Like, what was there was like some vote at the UN about just super recently.
There was a vote at the UN, that was supposed to be. It was a motion submitted by Ghana that was supposed to be recognizing the slave trade as one of the worst crimes against humanity, or possibly the biggest crime against humanity.
I think it was like the wording was that it was like the worst, and it was supposed to kind of like pave the way for reparations. And stuff.
Yes, and of course, the entire Imperial Court, European countries abstained, and the US and Israel and Argentina voted against it.
New Zealand abstained, which I thought was
or like literally, it's like you can see the Imperial Core in like the abstentions of this vote. It's crazy. But yes, anyway, so Lenny Henry was, obviously talking about that and referencing that and stuff like that, and has of course been attacked by right wingers and stuff. But yeah, they were at the protest and they were giving speeches. The demonstration proves a couple of things. Firstly, that there is a broad amount of support for anti-racist causes and a rejection of the far right in Britain. And this, comparatively with Tommy Robinson's Unite the Kingdom march, shows it's quite stark. Because March last year, the Unite the Kingdom march last year was estimated by crowd size expert Milad Haghani from the University of Melbourne to be roughly 56,000 to 76,000 people attending that march, despite police saying it was more like 110, 150,000. And alongside the fact that Waxy Lemon bussed and flew in hundreds of people from all over the globe, including as far away as Aotearoa, bring in your favorite fascist church members. It's Destiny Church, isn't it, Tim? They came over. Yeah. So, this is the thing, Waxy Lemon had to bring in all of these people from all over the globe to bump up his numbers for his big fascist rally to be like, unite the kingdom, even though the kingdom is Belgium, France, the USA, Aotearoa, all these other places, and could only manage to get 56 to 76,000 people. And, it's clearly, even the police estimates are saying things like, 500,000 people. And, this is just, it just shows that everything in terms of support for the far right in Britain is totally astroturfed. I've been saying this quite a lot recently. There is just not a broad appetite for these high-grade levels of racism in British society. It's just not something that is seen as acceptable. It's not something that is seen as, popular and stuff like that. And there are certainly people who, get shit twisted when it comes to talking about migrants and not understanding that every single migrant is, illegal in this country because that's the way that the Tories made it. But broadly, this thing is just not popular. And, this 500,000 strong march in the UK totally confirms what most people have been thinking about this. And with it being led by, Zach Polanski, the new hope of the left in Britain, you've also got Zara Sultana on there, and you've also got, the classics, some of the classics there, Diane Abbott, who are leading this march. And so, yeah, it's a broadly popular thing. The Fash have been coping and seething about the obvious attendance of the march, outclassing theirs in every single way, with about 100 counter-protesters turning up to embarrassingly wave Iranian monarchist and Zionist entity flags, with Lawrence Fox whining on Twitter saying, "What is the far right? What exactly are you standing against?" And getting utterly mogged by Zach Polanski, just replying with, "You." So that is, that's some pretty hopeful shit that's going on. Of course, it's a little libbed up, but I think that broadly, the amount of different causes that were present in the march, if you just look at the story and you know, sort of like look at the pictures and see there's a ton of Palestine flags, there's a ton of queer flags, there's a ton of you know, trans flags, there's like cohorts from unions, there's cohorts from you know, tenant unions, there's cohorts from radical organizations. Like, you know, it was a big you know, extremely diverse crowd. So, anyway, that's some good news. And Tim, why don't you tell us about an interesting development?
Yes. So Germany has dropped its support of Israel at the ICJ. So it hasn't dropped its support of Israel, but the ICJ, with the current, you know, genocide case against Israel brought by South Africa, yeah. So Germany has like fully just dropped out of that case. So yeah, the German government has been staunchly defending Israel's actions for, yeah, I mean, since the founding of the state, basically. Yeah, but most notably including the recent genocide on Gaza. So yeah, even since October the 7th, 2023, Germany has gone on to become Israel's second largest arms supplier after all of that, which is like an interesting part of the case in general. So yes, South Africa brought this historic case to the ICJ with the original legal accusation of genocide in Gaza, providing extensive evidence to back their claims, which is a significant moment in international law because it implicates not only Israel, but their supporting nations. So the German government initially said they'd support Israel via third-party intervention at the ICJ, but they've now decided not to submit a formal written intervention. And that is also despite the deadline having already passed. So they committed to doing something, and then the deadline passed, but they still kind of like hadn't done it yet. But there was the assumption that they kind of would, and then they've just been like, "Oh, actually, no, we're not actually going to do that now." So yeah, Nicaragua has accused Germany of supporting genocide in Gaza by arming Israel. So that's a separate case at the ICJ. So yeah, so this case has been mostly ignored by German politics and media, basically with the critics just saying that it's anti-Semitic and blood libel and all that kind of stuff. But the pressure does seem to be having an effect because they have been halting some of their arms deliveries. And this has also exposed that there are that German politicians have possibly been lying to the ICJ regarding the nature of these deliveries to Israel. And it's recently been found out that some of these deliveries weren't from German manufacturers, but actually from Germany's own armed forces stockpiles, which is interesting because then it's like, oh, like, so that is actual like that's military support, you know, like that's not, oh, you're buying stuff from us or whatever like that. That's like, oh no, we're sending stuff from our own army to
Such a
you guys.
bad time for people to be German. Just like
Yeah,
This is
fucking
crazy.
exactly.
Germans
That's
Yeah,
hate
so
genocides. What's going
yeah, just
on?
being like, oh, we're
yeah,
gonna do everything we can to never be complicit in a genocide ever again. You know what? We're gonna be as nice as possible to the people that we did the genocide again. Oh no,
yeah,
shit.
yeah,
Oh
yeah.
fuck, no. Oh no.
So yeah, and so because Germany is now facing its own case at the ICJ, that is like a lot of people at first were like, oh, this is Germany changing its mind, but it's like, no, Germany is pulling out of the Israel case because that could further implicate Germany in its own case. Like that's why they're slowing down the deliveries. That's why they're pulling out of this case, because the further down that track they go, the more support they give, the more complicated that makes their own separate case, which
There's a
is
word for
pretty
this,
fucking
right?
damning.
Like they're recusing themselves.
Yeah, basically, yeah. And so yeah, so I feel like a lot of people were a little bit optimistic about the reasons for them recusing themselves, but yeah, no, it's realistically it's just they're trying to save their own bacon. But yeah, it is interesting, like, and at the same time we've just seen Volkswagen announce that they can't compete with Chinese EV manufacturers, so they are going to start I guess, like, reconfiguring parts of their business to go back to producing weapons to
What?
support genocides.
That is not where I expected that to go. That's crazy.
Yeah, no. So they're gonna start changing some of their factories to produce missiles for Israel instead. Which is, like, it's kind of this thing where it's just like, Germany
This is
is
like
just getting back to its roots and all
this,
these
this
things,
is like
like
the
it's
opposite of a
like
just transition. Like a just transition would be Volkswagen are now cooperating with Chinese electric car manufacturers to save the
no.
planet. But it's like, no, we're doing the fascist version of that, which is
Yeah, 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 yeah.
we're now collaborating with Elbit Systems to make drone cars that basically trap Palestinian.
Yeah,
Whatever.
yeah.
Imagine awful genocidal intent here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
Electric
God.
self-driving fucking Merkava tanks. It's like, no, they're
Yeah.
making missiles, and it which is like fucking horrific. But this is a market response, right? They're like, okay, we can't compete with China's production model for like EVs or just cars in general.
So we're
But
just gonna make missiles.
business,
It's
yeah, yeah,
insane.
yeah, genocide business always booming. It's like it's fucking insane. But this is a market response. This is an economic response. It's fucking insane. Yeah, so Germany, what's going on there? Do we need it? Uh,
Yeah, yeah. It looks like the
anyway,
jury's
no,
out
like,
on Germany's right to exist.
yeah,
They
yeah.
should have just. They should have just. No, I'm not going to say it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Honestly, like, we have a lot of we have a lot of Red Planet listeners from Germany who actually do have objectively based and correct views, and they are doing a lot to do what they can over there. But
Yeah.
yeah, so we love the working class of Germany.
Yeah.
We don't love their
Of
leaders.
course, it's the state. We're talking about the
Yeah,
state. Yeah.
exactly. I mean, we could say that for pretty much all countries right now. But yeah, so yeah, and speaking of this, I think this is also, speaking of market responses and all that kind of stuff to the war and the genocide. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what's happening in the world of AI at the moment?
Yeah, go on then. Yeah, okay, go on. So obviously the Iran war has caused like an enormous economic shock already, but the very like immediate rise in oil prices is very much not the only thing that it's gonna do. So in the one sense, we have like the immediate shock for the thing that is most directly related to to the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, which is like the price of oil basically everywhere. Um, but very intensely in some places. So in the Gulf, where like the price of oil is significantly much higher because like they can't move their oil, well, they can't move the vast majority of their oil at all. Um, their energy prices shot through the roof, which is like basically collapsed the data center industry in a bunch of Gulf states. Um, and the longer term economic effects of the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, like it's been being discussed, like we're gonna be feeling this stuff for a long time, even up to the point that we're currently at. And like I don't think the end is my shittest take maybe ever was the our Iran war discussion. I was like, it'll be a few days. I don't know what we're doing now, but I think like yeah, it's very clear there's going to be a significant, um, possibly like multi-stage economic response to this, and I say that because like if the first thing is that inflation and rising energy bills and the crunch on private equity causes the American data center industry to go under, then there's going to be a whole second wave of this, and like even the liberal slop publications are onto this now. I was talking about one of these on my stream last week. Like it's just like even they're admitting it's probably fucked right now. So it's important to say that like it's not while some of the libs are like fantasizing what if like Iran attacks the infrastructure of the like data centers or electricity infrastructure of the US, like I don't think that needs to happen for shit to go south. I don't think that's particularly likely at all. I think that like what's far more likely to collapse the data centers and therefore the AI sector, and which is therefore the tech sector, and therefore the US economy, and therefore most of the Western economic system, is the private equity flows. So it's just that like there is a lot of small borrowing to make every stage of the chain of like making AI work is built on debt. And so you have to constantly remember when thinking about the economics of the AI bubble, like the guys who are running the data center, but they actually rent the location for it, and they also have to pay power bills, and then they're like making money off the AI companies. And then if like the energy bill goes up at the same time that there's like large inflation, so like just general costs go up, they'll probably also try and increase the rent, and probably also like the crucial step there is like when investment starts to get skittish, it's going to be like this snowball, this feedback loop, because like uh because that's where the money to pay the large electricity bills and the rent comes from. So at that point, it's just like it could just vaporize essentially. Um, and investors are starting to get skittish. So Sora is shutting down the OpenAI video making app. They're done. They're just bye bitch. Um, it's yeah, it's just they're just not doing it anymore. Um, Considering how much OpenAI lies about their entire business model and what they're up to and how well things are going, it's hard to say completely, but but this is a little bit from the BBC on it. So since the platform's launch, Sora made 1.4 million in global net in-app revenues compared to 1.9 billion over the same period for ChatGPT, according to data from Seema Shah, VP of Insights and at market intelligence firm Sensor Tower. Forrester analyst Thomas Husson told BBC News it was a resource black hole with limited monetization. So if I think the broad strokes of this we can trust. And then all the numbers, they keep on just like saying stuff that's people should
Oh
follow Ed
yeah,
Zitron because his coverage of like how the revenues are being misreported is very damning.
yeah.
Um, but I think the broad strokes of this is true. They've been chucking so much money just in a hole here, and they've finally
Mm,
realized it's just a hole and it's doing nothing. And if this holds true for many other AI products, which it very likely does, um, yeah, this could be like a bit of a domino.
mm.
Yeah, I mean, anyone else's thoughts are welcome. I think that I think that I just wanted to like
Counterpoint. You
try
can
and
make
call my shot
films
on
with
this a
it.
little bit.
You can make films with it, though. What do you mean? You can
You can
do
make the We Are
anything.
Charlie Kirk video where
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Jeffrey
feel like
Epstein stops the bullet with his magic powers and then they dance the conga line
yeah,
around Utah Valley University.
like AI videos, just like aside from all of the environmental stuff, all of the political shit or whatever like that, just like these AI generated videos as a thing have just been disastrous for the minds of so many people in so many different
Oh
ways.
yeah.
Like in the ways where it's like obviously they're making like videos that are like deceptive, or like I've seen a lot of these fake videos where it's like people kind of race baiting, like people doing like making fake videos of like black Americans like attacking people or being really, just things like that where it's like all these comments, like just like thousands of comments being like, yeah, blah blah blah, like we need a whatever, like, and all these people thinking it's a real video that they've seen. That shit is horrible. Also on the level of how like there's also obviously like the intellectual property and all that kind of shit, but the way that it has made people just like, I feel like it has lowered the bar for what people think is like good or interesting or cool or whatever, like all these people making these, like people that previously you'd think would have known better. Like I've seen indie directors, I've seen really intelligent people getting into AI film generation and just like ruining their brains. It's like it's so wild how it's like I don't know why that one thing, I guess like image generation to a lesser extent, but the AI like video generation just does something to people where it like makes them, I don't know, like it's literally turning people into the humans from Wall-E, like right
Yeah.
in front of us. And then that's
Well,
not to
yeah.
say anything about all the fucking the explicit stuff, like all the deep fake porn and all that kind of wild shit. And even just like the stuff that's not deep fake, but is like just really like disgusting kind of shit, like when Grok was generating all like
Yeah,
the
yeah,
child
yeah.
exploitation shit and stuff. Like just like I feel like removing this video generation thing in general is just like this would only have positive effects on the world to get rid of this aspect of it.
I think like Grok is this true has become such an instant meme for
Yeah.
like it's because people obviously ask it about such a like completely asinine shit where they like just seen a video of Obama firing himself to the moon with farts and it's like Grok is this real?
Yeah, yeah,
But at
yeah.
the same time they'll also just see like I don't know like 9/11 happened and they'll be like Grok is this true? And it's like
Yeah.
it's
It's
like
like the
the
new like
nature of
vaxxed question mark.
yeah
Yeah.
it's just like it's just that like the dependence on AI to check if facts are true is the one half of it, but like the other is obviously that like we're living in this just fabricated reality
Yeah.
on social media because of this stuff. And I don't know, I feel like it will become a lot more apparent to if AI genuinely like dips in usage like dramatically as it must if like the service is shut down. I think that a lot more people will like reckon with the idea that like the wool was being pulled over their eyes, and you
Mm.
kind of like if you can successfully implement a technology that like pacifies the population and makes everyone dumber and more completely dependent on it and all this shit, and then it's there forever, right? That's just like an unbelievable win for like authoritarian,
Yeah.
evil, fascist shit. If you
Mm.
start to try to do it and then it disappears, it's gonna become so obvious that like you're the most evil motherfucker,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
everyone's gonna be like out to get you. Like,
Yeah, yeah. And I feel like it would be really hard to bring it back then, when you think of like things that people sold, like the public on being like, this is going to be the next big thing. And then if it flops, even if it was something that did have potential for some good, people are just like, no, that shit sucks. Remember when we had that and it sucked? Like, so yeah, I'm very eager for I guess like generative AI as a whole to disappear. And I feel like it's one of
please.
those things where it's like you can't necessarily put the entire genie back in the bottle. Like
Oh, I'm
now
sure
that it
military
exists,
AI is staying. Like
exactly.
the
Or even there
Maven, the
was
thing
like,
that's choosing where to bomb in Iran, is like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
definitely.
Like there was that Chinese group that invented their own AI that used like a fraction of the thing. And like I've seen people saying like, oh, you can actually run more simplified ones on like a home computer and all this kind of stuff like that. So I think that kind of stuff
There's
is always going to be around, and people might
there's some
even
like
like,
local AI tech projects I'm probably gonna give a go at some point. It's
yeah,
like it's
yeah,
the use of
definitely.
data centers that's the evil, like, and the
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
plagiarism that's
Well,
the evil
so
parts. Like,
yeah, a friend of mine was talking about that just the other day while I was tattooing her, and she was saying that there's a really interesting thing of P2P AI stuff, like people kind of using these things. So it's like you could have a bunch of friends and you could all pool together your own computers to work on like certain projects or whatever. And she was like, "Oh, this actually like does open up some really interesting things." She's like, it's one of those things that it could go really badly if people decide that like, okay, to have a computer to use Windows, you all have to be, lending, like mining Bitcoin sort of thing. Like you have to be using a part of your process power to do this. But also it could be a really powerful thing if, like back in the day when they didn't really have the internet in places like Ukraine, so they would all com- hook their computers together manually. Like I can imagine some really kind of like almost, I guess, like, these like kind of communal, like anarchist approaches to running their own
that
mini
would be
data
great.
centers kind of happening. But, like, hey, who knows what world we're going to be living in 6
Yeah.
months when it comes to AI? Like this could all be, like the Butlerian jihad could start. So,
Yeah. I just feel really sorry for David Lynch, who apparently definitely really 100% told Natasha Lyonne that he loved the idea of her creating an AI
Oh,
film
that's right. She
company
did that. Yeah, yeah,
before
yeah.
she died, before he died, and
That
that's
definitely
definitely
happened. Yeah.
true. And I feel sorry for his memory. He, rest in peace, King. Your vision will never be realized for a Natasha Leon AI film company. And I also feel really sorry for Kyle Kalinske because I don't know what he's going to share on Twitter anymore.
Yeah, true. I have seen like all these AI videos that Iran and even like some Chinese media entities have been making where it's like the video itself really has this core of like, okay, this is a really good fast way to give people information in an entertaining format. But it's like, fuck, man, like this AI shit sucks. Like it
Yeah,
would have been
yeah.
sick if you had just like, got a bunch of like, indie illustrators and animators to like smash
Mm.
something together. Because some of them
Filmmaking
do
is a
have that.
process. Yeah,
Yeah, some of them do have
yeah.
that kind of like old like Adult Swim kind of vibe, where it's like, man, you could
The
have just,
the
yeah.
Lego the Iran propaganda that was like Lego
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
everyone getting bombed and shit. Like if they had to go back to like YouTube 2007 stop motion animation of Lego figures to make their propaganda because
Yeah,
AI
yeah.
collapsed.
Like that would actually be, I would fucking love that. There was also
Yeah.
CCTV, the Chinese China Central Television did one that was a like an old kung fu movie style
Yeah,
thing
it
about
was
it's like
Persian cats versus
um
American eagle and
Eagles. Yeah, it was
vulture.
like the White
Yeah,
Eagle Alliance that is like
yeah.
dominating the world or whatever. And
That
it
was
was
actually
like,
pretty good. It
yeah,
was
it was
the
really good, but
story
it's just,
was great, but it's
yeah,
it's just AI and
it's
it's like
AI
you just
shit,
can't escape it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But
I
I
actually
also
said
did
I
think,
watched it on the stream and I was saying this would be a really good just placeholder. But then like now that I'm saying it in retrospect, it's like, no, you could just write this idea down. Like
yeah,
you
yeah,
don't
yeah.
need to like use an AI to
Yeah,
make a
yeah, yeah.
placeholder idea for a film. You could just write the idea down and then
Like you
make a film
guys,
about it, you know?
CCTV definitely have the budget to like, get like
Yes.
a bunch of people together and like film on a sound because it has that look of like budget soundstage, like 60s
Yeah.
style. Like
You
you
just need
guys
some
could do
old
this so
cameras and
easily.
some old
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
microphones.
yeah.
Yeah.
But then there was also people making their own sequels to it, and there was one that was going around that was like, it was like pretty edgy. It was like, like this American eagle that was like controlled by a octopus on his head, and it was like
Oh,
very like,
I
that
saw
kind
that
of stuff.
one.
And that went around, and so that was actually just fake. That was just that wasn't made by CCTV or
It was made by
whatever.
a guy. Yeah.
Yeah, just by some guy or whatever. And I'm seeing all of these like, like pro-Israel people being like, oh, this is like the Chinese reactionary state, fucking
Well,
blah
it's
blah
always
blah.
a
And I was
blue
gonna,
check wanker. It's a blue
yeah,
check
yeah,
wanker, and they're just like, Iran just released this, and it's
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah. It's like,
a
oh,
guy
they
just
probably
made it.
didn't. Yeah,
A
yeah,
guy just
yeah.
made it. Yeah,
But I
yeah.
also think that thing is another thing with AI where it's like, oh, like it makes it indistinguishable to be able to tell, like, is this something actually made by Lego or is this made by, people that are doing the thing with Lego, which is interesting, because we're seeing like the White House using generative AI to make video. Like they made an Animal Crossing fucking video
That was
with Trump in it the other
crazy.
day. And it's like, you want like this shit sucks or whatever, but you want to be able to use that against them to be like, Nintendo, I will no longer buy any of your products because of your collaboration with the American government, and force them into like, like some kind of legal action or something like that. But yeah, it does make it unclear for a lot of people. Like, you see like older people that see this shit and they're going to be like, like fucking Nintendo is working with the White House, or Lego is working with blah 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 or whatever. And while that obviously leads to some like kind of funny situations or whatever, it also is like that makes things really complicated for a lot of these businesses that I think like it would only take a couple of big lawsuits to really kind of fuck a lot of this shit up,
Well,
um
this is
Yeah.
the start of the cliff, right? With Disney and the OpenAI
yeah, yeah,
thing.
yeah,
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 sorry, I
yeah,
should say
exactly.
because I haven't said in the news story to be clear that like OpenAI had a partnership, a huge partnership with Disney that was
Yeah.
in progress and has now been cancelled. And that's like
Mm.
that if it was going to go through, right, you can imagine how like Disney would like to Disney, love having like some of the most widespread, like recognizable characters that they own in the world,
Yeah,
and it's a
yeah.
huge base of their like enormous capitalization on just like yeah, like media in general, really.
Like they
And
literally
if
control like
they
the cultural hegemony of the entertainment
yeah,
industry.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, it's like
Everyone should
that's
read
Disney.
the book How to Read Donald Duck. Like understanding
Oh,
Disney's role in American imperialism is like
yeah, yeah, yeah,
vital when you're talking about Disney. But like them no longer having this deal as well as Sora going is like obviously the biggest movers in copyright would like to be involved in how AI is being done, obviously, and that's why there haven't been these massive lawsuits. I think, until now. Well, there aren't any so far, right? But like there haven't been any so far. Because like there's money to be made in the like copyright infringement machine if you can be on that side of it. But I think if it starts to go downhill, like they might be like, oh, also, by the way, we're gonna sue you for like every single piece of content you ever made that has
yeah.
like has our characters in.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That would be incredible. I mean, I would just love to see other people fighting that battle for us, sort of thing. You know, it's like, yeah, like with the corporates, just like let them fight. You know, like
Yeah,
let
absolutely.
them expend as
Um,
much resources and everything as
it's
possible.
it's just like I think that we might be. It's like Elizabeth Holmes and Theranos, like fractally, all the details of it like scaled to an inconceivably larger platform, but it's still
Mhm.
It
ultimately
is
a
that,
fucking
yeah.
scam. And now we're gonna see it come down in the same way, and Sam Altman will be just understood as like Elizabeth Holmes on crack times a million.
Yeah, yeah.
Like anyway, on that note, Mule, tell us about America.
Yes, in the USA on Saturday, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people in multiple cities across the US, including New York City, Los Angeles, St. Paul, Atlanta, Chicago, Honolulu, and many more, demonstrated against the Trump administration in our favorite libbed up protest movement, No Kings. So, several issues taking the lead, as have been in the past couple of protests organized by these guys, including ICE, the war in Iran, and affordability. This is they're just quickly becoming known as everyone's favorite lived up protests. It's gathering momentum. It's gathering support in Atlanta. One of the main speakers was U.S. Senator Raphael Warnock, and I just wanted to include some of what he said here. Quote: "They made ICE bigger than all the other federal law enforcement entities combined. I'm afraid that a wannabe king who is busy building himself and his billionaires a ballroom intends to use ICE as his own private army to do his bidding to make him king. But he's not a king. This is our land. This belongs to we, the people. And these powers that he arrogates to himself, these buildings he tries to put his name on, these things no more belong to him than the fake Nobel Peace Prize that he had somebody give to him." End quote. In New York City, Robert De Niro and Reverend Al Sharpton led the march. And yeah, despite the liberal nature of the protests, the politics amongst protesters has reportedly become more radicalized, albeit with a incoherent sort of structure. With one user on Blue Sky saying, quote, "Walking through the ultra normie No Kings rally in my extremely rural white town, and there are Patagonia wearing mums carrying signs that say dead pedophiles don't reoffend and ICE gets the wall. And I high fived an old guy with a sign that said, my daddy fought Nazis and so will I. This is wild. And
I'm
I
so
cannot."
surprised to hear that like suburban moms would be into the death penalty. I'm genuinely so shocked that like nah,
Yeah.
I think there's more radical that they can get than that.
There's definitely more radical they could get. Yeah, absolutely. No, I think it is funny that like the way that they're referring to radicalism is like, oh, they support the death penalty that already exists. It's like, yeah, no, what they are doing is they are expressing a radical response to a thing that they don't like. And
Mm-mm-mm.
the opportunity is there. I think that this anecdote still explains my point, which is that
Oh,
there
100%.
there is a radicalized element here that needs to be, held and spoken with and advised on the direction with which to take this kind of energy. Right? Do you know what
100%,
I mean?
100. I'm just entertaining myself, imagining like yoga moms carrying like signs that say like "All power to the Soviets, all land to the people."
Yeah, exactly.
Hell
That's the
yeah.
trajectory that we want to see, right? Yeah, and then this guy is also saying that he couldn't stress enough how these are just like PTA mums, soccer coach dads. The vibes are festively bloodthirsty, and yeah, this is the in terms of radicalizing. I'm not always going to say radicalizing in terms of left wing radicalizing, but yes, it's a radicalizing extreme, politic that is becoming quite apparent in these protests. People are really pissed. There is certainly, obviously, this liberal, overbearing liberalism to these protests. But I think that, yeah, this is just something that people need to use as an opportunity to speak to people and just redirect this energy and, just not let it become a massive protest for brunch. You know what I mean? Like we really, really, really like. Because at the moment, it kind of just feels like we really, 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 really want to go back to brunch, and it has to be more than that because this is such an opportunity, in terms of just like normies, go into these fucking protests and being so extreme in what they're saying. And there has been union presence noted at many of these marches. There are more radical groups who are using the opportunity to talk with more liberal people, in attempt to steer them towards more effective protest, mutual aid, and direct action. And I think that we were speaking about this with Brett when we had Brett on, from Minneapolis. He was talking about ICE, anti-ICE organizing and stuff, and that is the way to do that. It is about like having those conversations with people in those more liberal areas, because the majority of people in the countries that we live in the imperial core are just like unfortunately very like privileged, in many ways, and don't understand their privilege as well, and that's the key thing. It's the biggest brainwashing and sort of like false consciousness of capitalist society, in that like we're just the guys living in the place and we're fine, we're not doing anything wrong. And it's like, no, your inaction is fundamentally tantamount to the existence of capital, right?
I was thinking this earlier, Tim, when you were talking about K Road, I was thinking like I'm going to chalk this up to autism, but just like when I was a kid and I first heard about loitering laws, I was like, oh, I'm terrified of being in public. Like I'm just terrified
Yeah.
of like being in public then if like they can arrest you, if it's a crime to like be places you're not supposed to be. And obviously like that's just like a kid's misunderstanding of the way that it works. But the way that if you think about then like the way that it does actually work is that most people go around ignorant of the fact that like there are people who that like the police can come up to you anytime and just be like loitering law, like you have to move
Yeah,
on,
yeah.
or we're going to detain you or whatever if they want to. You and the only difference is class. Like the only difference is
Yeah,
whether
yeah.
you're in a class of people who they want to do that to or not. And yeah, it's that's the same. I think that's the specific like being part of this like Wally people uh track of life where we're just
Mm.
like yeah.
For real, 100%.
Yeah, yeah.
So moving on, Tim, tell us about some key developments in the war against Iran.
Yeah. So there has been a fair amount of escalation over the last week or so. So yeah, the US and Israel's illegal war against Iran, Lebanon, Palestine, and Iraq continues into its fourth week as of yesterday, with no sign of de-escalation from either side. So Lebanon's Hezbollah reportedly carried out 94 operations in one day, all striking Israeli positions amid the Israeli invasion of southern Lebanon. Success rate has not been reported officially, but in a rare admission of military losses, Israel news outlets reported multiple casualties. So, yeah, Israel has reportedly successfully targeted and struck Iran's industrial centers and nuclear development facilities. Ansar Allah, also known as the Houthis in the West, have carried out their first operation against Israel in the south, with missiles reportedly being intercepted, but things broadly getting harder for the Zionist entity with a war on three fronts now. The US has been transporting thousands of troops to the region, with anything from 3,500 to 9,000 troops being reported as on the way, and a boots on the ground operation seeming more and more likely. Trump is saying that Iran are negotiating with him. Iran have denied this, saying Trump is talking to himself, alongside him declaring victory, saying that they have been militarily defeated, and then claiming that they need to be hit very hard still, and that all options are on the table. Very normal, very easy to pass Trump stuff. I did see someone did a transcription of one of his speeches where he was just saying one thing and then immediately going back on it, and they'd put it down in bullet points where he basically was saying, we won but we haven't won, but we're winning, but things could go on for an indefinite amount of time, but we're very close, we'll probably wrap this up next week. Just like this, you
The
just a
funniest
stream of god shit.
the funniest thing that I saw him say this week was he was outside Air Force One, and he clearly just had like a total senior brain fart moment where he just didn't know what word to use, and he was like, "We got to make sure that we get in there and we get the nuclear dust." And he's obviously talking about enriched uranium, but he just forgot.
The stuff. We got to get the goo. So in Iraq, after the US reportedly had a PMF, which is the Popular Mobilization Forces position, who are a Shia Iraqi militia that are part of the Iraqi military formed to fight ISIS, the sitting president has permitted them to strike back at US forces. So we do have, now there's been a lot of reporting done on the thousands and thousands of US troops being shipped over to the Middle East. I do think that some of the reporting outside of the media, I guess, was interesting though, because there is a classic thing where before people get deployed, the food that they get served starts getting a lot nicer, like for the couple days beforehand. And there was a lot of people posting screenshots from like Facebook and Twitter and everything of people that had deployed children posting pictures that their kids had sent them of getting like steak dinners and like things like that, and they're finally feeding my boy good stuff over there, and everyone just being like, like, is anyone gonna tell them? And then literally days later they get told they're getting deployed. But another interesting one that I saw was a friend of mine
Those
retweeted a
people's kids are
video.
gonna die.
Exactly, yeah. A friend of mine retweeted a video of a dancer at a strip club that worked. I think she said she worked nearby 3 military bases, and she was like, "Oh yeah, these like kids are coming in and just like dumping all of this cash, and they're just like basically saying that they're going off to war and they don't know if they'll ever come back." And she's like, she's like, I'm actually getting really emotional, because she literally said in the video, she's like, these boys look like fetuses, like they're kids or whatever. So I think it's like, it's wild. And there has been also it's not really getting reported on aside from like, independent outlets, but there have been I think there's like literally thousands of soldiers going through the official paperwork process to become conscientious objectors to not get deployed, which is kind of, to me, I'm kind of like, man, well, like you obviously just signed up to like buy a truck or something, right? Like you just signed up for like, or like university or whatever, which is like a whole thing, like for a lot of kids, they think this is the only way out of my circumstances, so I'm going to do this, and it's probably never going to do anything. I'll probably just sit on base for a couple of years and then I can whatever. And it's like, well, you signed the form saying that you were signing up to go kill brown kids in the imperial periphery or whatever like that, so this is actually the consequences of your actions. Like I do think it's good that they're kind of becoming conscientious objectors or whatever, but it's like, this was always like, you can't pretend to be ignorant because this is what they've always done. You got to realize that you took a gamble on this, right? Like this was,
I think in terms of the utilizing the political moment, like if there are a bunch of dissatisfied troops, we ever like leftists should be meeting them where they're at as much as possible. I just think that if there are a bunch of like dumb kids or whatever, or for that matter, dumb any age people
yeah,
who
yeah,
like signed up because they wanted the benefit of it, or they thought that like it's a noble thing to do, but like the longer they've been there, they've been like, oh shit, I'm really not sure
yeah,
about
yeah.
this. Like it's good for us to meet them where they're at.
Mm.
But I don't know. It's just such a nightmare situation, all of
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Like, yeah,
Like I have friends that have served in various militaries around the world, and that was their radicalization moment when they were like, oh fuck, like this is
yeah,
what we
yeah, yeah.
do. And like this is, and I think it's like, especially like in America, the most propagandized nation in the world, it's obviously really confusing or whatever. But yeah, all of my friends that went through that moment are very in your face about it to other people in the military. They're just like, dude, this is, like, this is what we do. Like, this is what it's there for. Like, you are, you're going to destabilize nations. You are the terrorists, sort of thing.
Oh
Um,
yeah, a hundred
so,
percent.
and I think that can, like, I'm not a big fan of like approaching people with kid gloves about this kind of stuff or whatever.
Oh no, you
Yeah,
should be
yeah, yeah,
you should be pointing out to them like you
yeah,
signed
yeah,
up for
yeah.
an evil job, obviously, dickhead.
Like
But like I,
you're a stormtrooper, man. Like,
oh yeah, exactly.
yeah, like
Uh,
literally, like
like
it's
I'll
what was it
help you.
like
You just
George
have to
Lucas
first
said
you
it
have to
was like
say I'm a stormtrooper and I'm sorry I decided to be a
yeah, yeah, yeah.
stormtrooper.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Like
yeah.
But
George
no,
Lucas
Tim,
literally
you
said it was like this was inspired by the Star Wars was inspired by the Vietnam War, like the
yeah.
rebels were the Viet Cong. It's like, yeah, no, you're
We
literally a
have in
stormtrooper.
the Red Planet re-education camp, we have three rooms, and we have the extreme room with Tim, where he's just like you scum, you are
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
murderer of
Then we play good
grandchildren.
cop, bad cop, right?
Yeah, yeah,
We
yeah.
go,
But there's
yeah,
three. But actually, there's a secret third cop, and that's me in the middle, and I'm like the transitionary stage
yeah,
where I'm
yeah,
like a little bit mean, but also a little bit nice. And then we
yeah.
get on to Sophie, and Sophie's like, "This is how we rebuild you as a person."
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
We've got
it could work.
also Talia in the chat pointing out that as conscientious objectors, they do lose all the benefits, which is
Yeah,
like is good, like that's like so it's obviously like a big decision for them to make,
yeah.
but yeah, it's like one of those things where it's
but they
like
need
I
to
do
shut the fuck up and sit
no, I
down.
do see it as like it's like you took a gamble, right? Like you took a gamble and you lost, and like
Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
you
yeah.
lost a couple of your years to the military machine. That's obviously still
Mm.
better than going to the Middle East and fucking
And killing
like
people
bombing
or
kids or
dying.
whatever.
Yeah, one
But
hundred
It's
percent.
worth saying in case just to get the information to people who are in the military if possible. Like I don't know, yeah, I don't know who's in our audience, but like, um, I did see one of the like conscientious objector hotline people saying that there's a grace period that relatively new troops can just say they're having trouble adjusting to the culture
mm,
of being in the army, and that it's like basically a free out if
yeah,
yeah, like within a certain period. That's worth looking into. So
yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah, so that's a little bit of an update about what's been going on in the Middle East. I think like all of our news somehow is like linked back to that in some way. It is a bit of a hot spot at the moment. But yeah, so we just want to remind everyone that Red Planet is made possible by the direct support of our viewers. If you do like what we do, you can jump on over to our Patreon and yeah, throw a couple bucks our way. There's always like a link in the thingy. Different levels for different amounts or whatever, so you can give as much or as little as you like. But yeah, that's the news. That was a long news section this this week. So yeah, Soph, did you want to lead into what we wanted to discuss today?
yeah, sure thing. So I guess the core of the discussion I'd like to have is around climate, because it was just a huge thing that influenced um our starting the show, and we're in what like the fifth year of the show now. So I feel like it's worth having a bit of a discussion that's just about like how we continue to see politics evolve, and I think that like a crucial yeah aspect of that is in net like yeah unavoidably is climate because uh, although although like the currents in American and European fascism have been there the whole time, there is something that is really specifically tipping things over at this point, and that there are like factors that are like shifting the shape of global power right now, and it might not be like very obvious to people how it's climate change, but like uh, it's been widely discussed that like the climate change played a big role in the start of the Syrian civil war. That it caused a bunch of a bunch of new refugees to like be generated by like the destruction of where people are living. And this has been a growing thing over time that obviously has then driven anti-migrant politics. Like anti-migrant politics have become enormous across the imperial court. And as much as they're like uh, manufactured as a distraction and a method of control by the ruling class, like they the ruling class and the media class are responding to something, and what they're responding to is like shrinking power as like the system like clearly can't hold and is becoming more and more erratic. Um, and so like yeah, I feel like climate change has been a force that has been worsening and driving a bunch of the worst stuff that in what we call like the poly crisis for a long time, and it is looking at the ecological disaster that's happening that I think informed a ton of our basis for like where we thought things were going that we've been generally vindicated on so far on Red Planet. And last year we passed 2 degrees of warming, and uh, and like yeah, and where do we find ourselves now? Where are we going? So I think one thing I'd like to point like yeah highlight to begin with is that I think like ecologically minded electoral parties in a lot of places are becoming openly socialist. That's very obviously happening in the UK. Despite the relative invisibility of climate in our political discourses, because there's like so much other shit going on, the fact that it like things are tied together with it like seems to have, in my opinion, kind of bled through for a lot of people. Like Greens are becoming socialists and people really, really want socialism. And so they're voting for the Greens at a time when like the ruling class would love to distract away from like the climate collapse as much as possible because it's relatively, if everyone were on the same page that like we are really plunging towards something inconceivably terrible, it would be very easy to get everyone on the same page of like let's reimagine how society works to make things more sustainable. Um, and they're not. They've been very successfully distracted by all sorts of bullshit. And there's been stuff that's been incredibly real, like, you know, the genocide in Palestine, or the Iran war now, that like their relationships to climate collapse are not, you know, immediately apparent, obviously. But like if you look at the factors around here, it's like, well, uh, as I said, like the rise of the far right in politics is very strongly tied to ecological collapse, actually, and the ways that the oil industry has like seen a more reactionary society as one that will defend its infrastructure and therefore paid to further the like you know the misinfo war they were already doing to try and cover up climate change. They went further to like fund anti-trans groups and whatever. It's like the oil industry has been moving like Epstein for a very, very, very long time. Um, and I think I said this last time, but like, or I might have said this on my stream, but either way, Epstein, people have been looking over his emails and saying like, oh shit, he's been involved in so many different things. It's crazy. And it's like, no, like the ruling class is involved in all those things. And this is a member of the ruling class whose emails you got to read. So you literally just like it's just like taking a sample of one of the shittier guys in the ruling class. Um, yeah, so I guess yeah, my first thought is like it's interesting that to see the Greens get popular in the UK, and I think there are other places where Green parties and like eco-socialists are winning ground, despite Green not being like the forefront of the what's on people's minds right now.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like that's the thing. Is also in just it's it's so linked, right? You know, it's like even if you're not necessarily like focusing on the putting the ecological issues first, if you are talking about like changing, I guess, like effectively if you're talking about socialism, like real actual socialism as a shift in our relationship to production, you're talking about the environment, like so many environmental issues are because of the greater economic system, like overproduction, all that kind of stuff like that. So like I think when people are saying, like we're constantly seeing these arguments from conservative parties and commentators who are actively supporting the destruction of the environment, they turn on these green parties and go, oh, they're not even, they're too busy focusing on, like the homeless, or like, like
Or
trans rights and things
Palestine,
like
or
that,
yeah, trans
like, or like
people. Yeah,
Palestine
yeah.
or whatever like that. But then it's like, if you have the political understanding of, like a fucking adult and not a fetus, you can see how all of these things are actually linked, like, these people that approach politics as a separate, a whole bunch of different separate issues, that they're like, okay, I feel this way about this and that way about that, whatever. But then it's like, if you actually have a developed political ideology that you really have figured out, like what is important to you and all of that kind of stuff, then generally it, if you have a more developed sense, more developed personal politics or whatever like that, you will see how a lot of these things play into each other. And I think that is true also on the other side of like the actual deeply committed ideological fascists. They understand how all these things are also linked for them as well.
Yeah.
It is, I think it's like, the most evil of those guys get it, and then I think a wider amount of people on the left are starting to get it as well. It just is that the overwhelming majority of people in the center and people on the right probably don't get it, and I think that's beneficial to, like,
I'm
I
not
guess,
super sure about the
extremism.
majority of the right, to be honest. Like,
Oh yeah.
I think they know and are very happy pretending. Like,
Mm.
I think that, for example, the society we live in, to anyone who is just like, as you say, just not a fetus, like,
Yeah, yeah.
it's obvious that a society where trans women are treated better would be a society where cis women are also treated better.
Mm. Yeah, yeah.
And so like the line about like protecting women by treating trans women worse is just like, it clearly is motivated differently than how it's presenting itself. And I think that like, yeah, I think that a lot of the right loves trolling still. I think that Gamergate like never went away in some sense. Like I think people like they love acting like they don't get why the Greens would also love the like being the Reds, and they'd also love the pink and blue, like all this
Yeah.
stuff. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, well that's
Mm.
that's totally like what this Spectator article was that I read the other day. People in the UK will know about it because it has the political cartoon featuring Zach Polanski, Mothin Ali, and Hannah Spencer from the Green Party. Hannah Spencer, the new MP. And what we're talking about here is a Jewish man, an anti-Zionist Jewish man who's also gay, and Mothin Ali, a Muslim guy, and Hannah Spencer, who is a white woman, and the only one who looks normal in the cartoon is Hannah Spencer. These
Yeah, like those things where it's like, okay, cool, we're making a caricature of someone, all these ethnic minorities, we will play up all of their features, but white people look normal, so it's
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, that was
It's
it. That
like,
was it. That's literally
yeah,
the cover, and the cover is supplementing the title of the piece, which is the Greens have abandoned their eco roots and stuff like that, and it's like a picture of them like cutting down trees with faces that are going oh no, and like Zach Polanski's got his like keffiyeh on, and Mothin Ali's got his like Palestine football jersey on, and but Hannah Spencer just looks a bit normal. She's got a bit of a sore, and she's like soaring on a
yeah,
log. Anyway, it's absolutely crazy,
She
but
she
like
looks
the
like a normal dumb person, and the other
exactly.
two
yeah,
look,
yeah,
yeah, like very, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
normal to racists, right? Like just look like,
So
oh,
why
he's
is it
so
that the
normal.
Greens that are cutting down the trees in this argument, oh, in this
Well, the
thing?
well the great thing about that, Tim, is that
Yeah.
that is not brought up in the article at all.
Exactly,
And
like that's what I think. It's like, it's always these people that are conservatives, like these people that are actually like, yeah, fossil fuels, deforestation, all this blah blah blah, all this kind of shit. They're the ones that are like being like, you
Mm.
guys don't even care about the environment. It's We
Well,
taught
the-
you
the-
about
the-
the environment.
the entire fucking article is just it is written by a fetus. Actually, it's written by a fetus that's not been born. Like he just never been outside, never touched the grass. This fella called Angus Colwell, I might be getting his name wrong, his surname at least. He's definitely called Angus something. And he is just kind of saying like it's crazy that the Green Party supports Palestine. That's like what the entire article is about. And it says like the old guard, like he's trying to say that conservatives left the Green Party. He's trying to say that there were conservatives in the Green Party and they left because they were getting too woke. And then he's also trying to say that there was like an old guard of environmentalists who are somehow not conservatives, but also somehow not left leaning in any way, shape, or form.
If I was just going to put on the They Live glasses and look at the Spectator cover, right, the cover would just have like no picture, obviously, it would just be text, like, just like in the movie. And it would just say, like, with exclamation marks, it'd be like, no, no, stop waking up. Like,
Yes.
it's literally just
That's
like
what it is.
they're throwing a tantrum that, like, people are going, oh shit, like solidarity is the basis of our politics, so we
Yeah.
need to care about lots of different issues. And like I think it's like we I mentioned the poly crisis earlier, and I feel like there's a bit of an attitude sometimes as if like there's just a lot of stuff going on. And I think the more people have a cogent political ideology, the more they get like, no, there's not just a lot of stuff going on. There's basically one big thing going on, and it's been manifesting.
Well,
It's for a long time been able to manifest just like one big symptom or one big problem or a couple of big problems at once. And
Did
now
you-
it's like absolutely shitting itself. So it's there are like 20, and they're all crashing into each other as well.
Did you know that the right wing have a word for that now of what? Like the polycrisis. They call it the omnicause.
Oh yeah, I've seen like there's the meme that they have of like the little chip being taken out of the back of the head of the little Wojak and then another
Yes.
one replaced, and it'll be like, okay, we're taking the environment out and we're putting
Yeah.
Palestine in. And it's like I've literally seen Elon Musk tweet that out, and it's like these
You are putting
people
chips in people, man. You
Chips in people's brains.
yeah. But it's like the funniest thing because it's like, oh no, you're just literally too naive to understand how these issues are connected, and that like, like in the concept of solidarity and all these things, and that like we can be, like thinking about the environment, but then also thinking about, like Gaza and Israel, and even, like even just shit about like how these bombs that Israel are dropping are damaging the environment, all these kind of things. It's like, it's so simple. Like anyone with an adult brain can
Yeah.
figure it out.
Yeah, but Tim,
Yeah,
the,
like,
the
it's-
IDF have got vegan pleather boots, so
No, but just like the fuck, like settler colonialism, white supremacy, and American hegemony and military dominance by the West, and all these things are like actually concentrated to a sharp point on the border between Israel and Palestine that moves whenever the IDF feels like. And like, so if you care about like Palestine, you already care about quite a lot of different issues.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like environment isn't even, as you say, like isn't a difficult one to add on. When you look at Tehran the last 2 weeks and just like the infinitely tall tower of black smoke over it, it's just like, oh yeah, shit, like as an environmentalist, even if I was like one of these like slightly psycho vegans who's like, I don't mind if human beings go extinct because we deserve it, but I want the polar bears and the baby like camels to be okay. It's like, even if I was like that, I'd be looking at the thing. I'd be like, oh, I know that I'm against the U.S. The like death to America. I'd be looking at it. I'd just be like, oh yeah, death to America. Clearly, like
Yeah.
even if I
Yeah.
didn't have the
And
slightest
it's
shred of
proven
concern
as
for
well.
human beings.
It's proven as well that like Israel specifically targeted this, like they specifically targeted this oil
Yeah.
plant in Tehran and
They want to
caused this
cripple the infrastructure. Yeah.
massive ecological disaster. And it is quite interesting because we are seeing like in response the first ever effort made to stop Israel from making white phosphorus from Iran because they bombed the factory where they're making it. So it is that there is this like fascinating sort of like I think there is a moment happening right now where everybody is broadly like seeing all this stuff. And I think it is just pissing the right off that they have completely failed by focusing on this, obviously incredibly harmful and damaging, but like issues that no one actually cares about. Like the broad majority of people, it's for better or worse, don't care about trans people. Like, and the broad majority of people don't care about migrants. Like, again, for better or worse. And it's like the things that are affecting people are broadly like people going like, I can't have a kid because the world is too scary. Like when you speak to a Norman, right, which is my new word for normies. Big up the Scouser in my chat who said that. When you speak to a Norman, right, they will often say things like, "Why would you want to bring a kid into this world?" And it's like that is ultimately you are just getting a picture of what someone's political
100%.
assumption of the world is. Like, they know that either it costs way too much money or that like the world is a bad place. And they will know that the world is a bad place for various reasons.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
if you're
yeah.
like a complete psychotic fascist who is like, saying, oh my God, the white race is in danger and stuff like that, you're going to be wanting to have a kid. You're going to have a kid and it doesn't matter. You're just going to like
Yeah.
have a white kid because you're a fascist, right? So these people are not fascists. So, generally speaking, there is this like knowledge and you, like you say, you just pick it up. You see those pictures of the smoke in Tehran and you go, Israel did that. United States did that, obviously.
I have a comrade who like talks a ton about like the moment when someone just like snaps and decides to go sicko mode for the rest of their life on whatever specific issue like they
Mm.
have. Like Lenin's brother, right, got assassinated, sorry, got executed after trying to assassinate the Tsar. And like Lenin after that happened was like, okay, I just have to do absolutely everything to build revolution
Yeah, yeah. I'm
rather
gonna
than trying
go
to do this
beast
thing, right?
mode
Just
like no one
beast
else
mode
ever has
forever on
before.
this thing. And
Change the
like
world.
ever
Yeah.
since having this conversation, I've been really tickled by the idea of someone having this moment but having like no political analysis, and they just decide they're just gonna like kill everyone in a straight line between them and the White House. Just like that's the only thing they
You're
can
gonna get killed
do.
those, yeah.
Like, yeah, just like exactly. But just like no, I don't know. I think it's worth talking a little bit about propaganda because it's had such a hold on people for a really long time. But I think we're in a moment of like people are saying like woke too. I think it is a an awakening that's happening. I think people are waking up en masse, and I think that like it's been really vital for the ruling class that like they can produce a reliable reaction in manufacturing consent by like many different fronts. We'll use like the thing because Mule just said it. The example about trans people, like yeah, the majority of people don't care about trans people, as in don't give a fuck. When polled, you'll find that people don't give a fuck and are generally like leave them alone. Right? They're like I don't want you to do bad stuff to trans people. Leave them alone. And then after a while of propagandizing, we get to the point we've been in the last couple of years where people will be like, "Oh, I've heard really scary stuff about trans people." Yeah, I'm worried about that thing. Like they've been fed a specific answer, and it's possible to now poke a button on them that makes them feed it back out again. But then, like the British media is like world class at doing this pattern. When they reach a point of saturation where they go, I feel like I'm hearing this all the time, and it's kind of sus, like it's the thing that I'm being told. I actually am really suspicious of this. And they start to investigate the politics a little bit more and they swing the other way. And this actually happens over and over again with various different groups. It's how the British media, I feel like, accidentally created an enormous ground of solidarity against Islamophobia after 9/11 and through the 2000s. They were so like intensely hatefully Islamophobic that after a while people were like, oh, this is just like people who were otherwise total normies were like, oh, this is a scapegoat minority. Like this is truly just like a completely fabricated load of shit. And like the media that does this is very good at moving on from it, which is the final move in that. But like, firstly, they the move on is supposed to be like before too many people swing the other way and have a big backlash to it the other way
Mm.
and build solidarity. And that's just not working out for them this time. Like too many people, anywhere they move that focus to be like, oh well, you should get mad about this thing. Instead, people are like, I think I'm mad at you. I think you're the one who's telling me where to look at this stuff. Like, um, I try as a rule to like never bring up this guy because he's a Nazi. And specifically a Nazi who feeds on attention, but like I think he's been cooked for a little while enough. He got doxxed and shit. So Stone Toss, right, had a
Oh
comic
yeah.
that was like people doing a tug of war, and like the person who's on whichever side he's trying to say is bad looks over and realizes that like the Jews or the bankers or something is on their side, and is surprised to learn that that's how like that's what's going on. And obviously this is just he's an anti-Semite. He's trying to get anti-Semitism across to people, but he's trying to get it across to people who are normie brained, people who don't have a developed political ideology. And so the core of how that piece of propaganda is supposed to work is that as a normal person, as a common sense person, like it's obvious to you that only a certain kind of obvious political alliance is good and just and working together for good reasons. And and anything else must be like funded, must be sinister, must be manipulated in some way. And then and obviously it also relies on you never questioning what would be an obvious alliance between different parties, like the obvious alliance between white majority countries, right? Like that's an obvious alliance, right? And it's like, well, no, it's founded on a specific ideology that's all this stuff. And I think that um the common sense of what would make a kind of the reason I'm bringing this up, so I got to actually have a reason because otherwise I've just talked about stone toss for ages. The reason I'm bringing this up is that people are pulling on a same side. They're on the same side of the tug of war, and they're very clear on why it is, and it's very obvious to them at this point. It's not a strange thing. It's not explained by sinister money behind the scenes or whatever. It's just the common sense understanding of why people struggle together is shifting. And I think that's a really crucial one. They've tried to make, yeah, people's focus go in lots of different directions with capitalist propaganda. And now people are just going, oh shit, no, I can see you doing that. This is, this is again, like my point about AI. If AI does collapse, a lot of people are going to be way more aware that they tried to pull them into a fake reality.
100%. I think one of the more interesting things that I'm noticing at the moment in terms of environmentalism, particularly in the UK and opposition to it, is the way that the Labour Party is on this absolutely unhinged growth obsession thing. And of course, when it comes to growth, they're not talking about growing the social fabric of our nation. They're talking about the infinite growth of development and rents and stuff like this. There's been an absolutely fascinating thing that has sort of flown under the radar for a lot of people, but surprisingly, because I follow some people in the Green Party, I know about it. And this is the UK's new forest city. What I think it's important to talk about, because I think that it is a very, very cynical attempt to greenwash a housing project, and there's a lot of this that's been happening recently. There's been in Manchester, there was a GMTU campaign to save Rybank Fields. They were trying to greenwash this project, or we called it house washing, because it was well, they're saying that we need to build these homes, so they're doing it in this green area kind of thing, and that's why it's okay, that's why it's got to happen in the green area, but don't worry, we're going to put some trees in the common areas and stuff. And this feels like that on steroids, on crack, on fentanyl, all at once. It's what they have done. There is a new nature reserve that they've just dedicated as a nature reserve, which is an area to the east of Cambridge. I don't think it has a name yet, but they've said, we're going to make this a nature reserve. The Britain needs more beautiful places. And then also there is this absolutely, completely bizarre organization that has kind of popped up out of nowhere, that is led by these two individuals. One who created a company back in 2024 called Looking for Growth, right? So this is literally a group founded in 2024 by a guy who was 26 at the time. What's the guy's name again? I can never remember. I think his name is, Joseph Reeve. And it's this other guy as well, Shiv Malik, who is more of a he's like an author. He's both of these guys have entrepreneur in their their sort of people bios in this forest city project thing. But yeah, this Looking for Growth company is so fascinating. Like I say, it came out of nowhere in 2024. It's been described in UK media as pro-growth, anti-decline, combining policy advocacy with campaign actions and events. And it's like that's just nothing to anyone who doesn't know anything about the way that these kinds of organizations operate. But to jump to like a little bit of history, in a June 2025 interview, LFG co-founder Lawrence Newport used the term vegetable lobby to refer to environmental activists opposing development proposals. And media coverage has also described LFG as seeking cross-party support for a pro-growth agenda, hosting events with speakers from more than one political party. So they are just kind of like trying to spread their lobbying influence across political parties. And it is basically just to like they call it speeding up major infrastructure delivery, right? But they add on the end, including changes related to planning and legal processes affecting major projects. What they're talking about is environmental red tape. That's all that is. They just mean we want to be able to build on greenbelt land. Yeah, we want to rush through these developments. So, like, Brits, if you didn't like luxury flats before, wait until you see luxury flats 2. They're made with the bones of ferrets and shit. So this is an absolutely insane idea. They're drawing on the idea of new towns. I think maybe we've spoken a little bit about Milton Keynes as a new town in the UK. They were like, right, we're going to build this new town. And it's a new town. It's a housing town. We need to build it to house people and stuff. And it just never really like developed beyond 1975 kind of thing. No shade to anyone living in Milton Keynes. You can't help where you're born, but it is what it is. But they're kind of like saying that like this is what we're doing. We're doing another Milton Keynes, and I don't know how that's attractive to anybody. I don't know how they've got any money for that, but they have, and they've got support. And they're wanting to do this Forest City thing, but it's totally house washing. And the way that they are referring to it, like they're putting out AI images of like these sort of like wooden houses, and it's like, hey, wooden houses, they burn down really easily. Like, I don't know if you saw Grenfell, but that was made with bricks, and that didn't work too well either. So I'm not sure about the legitimacy of this idea. So there's a lot of weird kind of, like you've got these artists' impressions, and it's all the same kind of stuff that you see with like, greenery on the rooftops and stuff. And it's like, hey, you're going to need to build a road to get there. You're going to probably want to build like a big fucking B road. You're probably going to want to build like a main road and shit like that for like logistics deliveries and stuff, because what are you going to do? Are you going to redirect the train station to go through there and, all this kind of stuff to drop off logistics? It's not going to happen. Like, you're not going to do this. You're going to build all these houses that are unaffordable and, Interestingly enough, they have like a section in their development plan, which is called resident selection, which is fascinating because it's like a lot of these homes are going to be like private, so it's like, I don't understand what the resident selection is all about. And they're like, the first cohort of residents will be selected by via a number of mechanisms, but all fairer than the current basis for housing allocation, one's parents' financial or social housing status. And then they immediately say 40% allocated to employees of commercial tenants. So they're like saying this will be a company town. This is going to be like a company town.
This is like fucking. Has anyone read Ballard's High Rise?
No.
I am a huge fan of the movie. I watched it like so many times over.
Yeah, read the book. It's fucking like
I've been meaning to. Yeah.
So prescient, but also like I mean. Yeah, I feel like there's like some people, like that were cursed with Apollo's sight, and it's like J.G. Ballard, Hideo Kojima, like maybe a couple others, but yeah. But anyway, go on, Neil. Sorry.
No, I think that the thing is that this, these kinds of things are gonna be more and more heightened, and we're gonna see a lot more of them because there is just this. infinite growth grind set
Yeah,
in
yeah,
all of our governments in all over the imperial core, and
yeah, yeah.
they think that like solving the housing crisis is building more homes, and somehow that's gonna like stop landlords from buying them.
There is a pathway here. So we build more homes. They're all company homes. We make one big company. We
Everybody joined together to be in one big company, and we
yeah,
could
yeah. We'll
all
just
own the company.
exactly, yeah, yeah. We're all
Okay.
shareholders in a big company
Now that
with our
sounds
company
woke.
housing, like everything like that. I feel like there's an angle here. There's,
He's cooking. He's cooking.
yeah, yeah,
He's
yeah.
cooking. Let
One
him
big
cook.
company. That could actually be like the pro business like sleeper cell angle where you
This
like,
is how we get the
start
libs in.
campaigning to the right with the one big company.
We give them a sign that has like all power to the one big company on the one
Yeah, yeah.
side, and on the back side of it says all power to the Soviets. And they're carrying it be like, one big company,
Yeah, yeah,
yay!
yeah, yeah, yeah. We're all workers for the one big company, and we have these little workers meetings. We do that. We all assemble for the workers meetings where
That's
we
too close. You gotta call them scrums.
yeah, yeah,
You
Yeah.
got you
scrums.
gotta
Yeah,
get
yeah,
like
yeah.
you gotta get crazy
I've got
marketing
it. No, wait, you
brain.
Yeah,
call
yeah.
it a workers' brunch. Literally, the people who want to be at
Yeah,
brunch.
yeah,
No,
Yeah.
it's a scrum. It's a scrum brunch. It's a scrum
yeah,
brunch where we're all
yeah, yeah.
doing friendly things and not talking about anything important.
Yep.
But yeah, it's a totally, completely cynical, project and development that is clearly going to, result in some kind of squat that might happen that we don't advocate for. But I reckon crusty people would love to go and build some houses of their own there that maybe don't cost money to live in, and you can just chill. I've heard of stuff like that happening, but I don't know. I've never seen it with my own eyes. Um, Unrelated, check out the Red Planet Zad documentary coming out soon. Obviously, I think it's really important that we've had this discussion about environmentalism, sort of like the way in which the world is going, and like the only solution is directly affecting the machines of capital and fossil fuel infrastructure, 100%.
Yeah.
But I guess we'll call it there. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Yeah. I guess I'm in charge. Yeah.
Non-committal, yeah.
This is Red Planet, and we are a show, and we do require your money in order to be a show. So please consider giving us that. Go to patreon.com/red_planet. There are many tiers by which you can support us. They're all very good. They've all got a lot of rewards, but there is only one that has the reward of at the end of every show, we give you a big thank you, and that is to Risk Inverse. Thank you for being our sicko. Thank you for supporting Red Planet so much. And yeah, we will be back next week. I think we're back next week, and make sure you tune in. In the meantime, if I wanted to find out more about my wonderful co-host Tim, where would I find out that information?
So you can find more about me. I'm on here on YouTube and Twitch as Conquest of Dread. Not super active there, but I have been thinking I do want to get back to doing some game streams occasionally. But yeah, I haven't done that for a little while. But you can find me on Twitter and Blue Sky as Dread Conquest. I'm most active on Twitter. I sign into Blue Sky like once a month and like a couple things and say something stupid and then disappear again. Probably less than that actually. But yeah, if you're into tabletop RPGs and stuff as well, I have one coming out soon called Dark RPG. There's a book behind me, but I can't use the force to get it. Where is it there? I'm touching it. I'm not actually touching it, but it kind of looks like I am if you can only conceive of the world in two dimensions. But yeah, it's like dark future class war RPG kind of thing. Lots of fun. Yeah, that's I keep saying every stream I'm like it's almost done. It's almost done, but it actually is almost done. Yeah, we're almost there. So you can check that out on Twitter at Dark RPG 2000 as well. But what if I want to hear more about Soph? Where can I find out more from Soph?
Sure thing. So my all over the internet, I'm known as Sophie from Mars. My links are all linktree.ee/ Sophie from Mars, and I make video essays, and I have a few different things I'm juggling at the moment. So I'm hoping to like finish up this like I have like three things that are very nearly written. One is an episode of Monster Men. One is about a very unhealthy obsession I have with Ezra Klein and his terrible podcast. And the other one is about a game I've been playing recently called Terra Nil. So if you've been enjoying us chatting about environment stuff, like it's like an environmentally focused game, and um, I'll leave it. I'll leave it there for now. You can get my takes in the video, and you can get them early if you go to my Patreon, which is the main way that I pay the bills. So please check out patreon.com/Sophie from Mars and all the other links in my link tree. But what if people wanted to find more from Mule?
Well, you could find me at twitch.tv/DJ Mule every Monday to Thursday, 6 p.m. UK time till late. I cover the news, I cover geopolitics from a anti-imperialist and communist perspective. So yeah, I am obviously looking at a lot of the Iran war at the moment, but also just the leftward shift, the heightening of contradictions in the imperial core, like particularly like talking about the Greens in the UK and also like progressive, if you could call them that, candidates in the USA. They're getting there, you know, they're getting there. There's some good ones. So stuff like that, and yeah, obviously talk a little bit about organizing as well. So you can check me out there. I've also got a video at the moment out, which I think is getting punished by the algorithm because everyone who's watched it has told me that I'm a very good boy and I made a very good video. So unless they're lying to me, which is possible, it's getting absolutely trashed in the algorithm. It's called "Why Did the UK Prescribe Palestine Action?" And you can check it out on my YouTube channel, which is DJ MUEL on YouTube. And I'm also working on a new video, which is going to be like, you know, essentially called "The Real Reason the US and Israel Went to War with Iran," because there's a lot of people saying a lot of things, and they're saying them very, very confidently. And, you know, two things can be true, even three and maybe four at the same time. And I think that's a very important thing to remember. So I'm going to do a little video about that in a couple of weeks. So stay on the lookout for that. If you want some updates, you can go to my Patreon and you can find them there. Patreon.com/DJMUEL. But thank you, everybody, for watching Red Planet and being here. If you've been listening on the podcast, make sure you follow or subscribe or whatever you do on that. And thank you to everyone who joined us live for the broadcast. We will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.